Sometimes you just stumble across an idea that really makes you pause.
Mm-hmm.
And recently we've been looking into this quite compelling, if maybe unusual, hypothesis.
Okay.
The idea that governmental institutions might have intentionally covered up evidence of reptilian elite rulers.
Right. That's definitely out there.
It is a bit out there. Yeah,
Yeah.
we get that. But for this deep dive, our goal is really to objectively look at the claims, the reasoning behind it all, drawing from these articles you shared.
Exactly. We've gone through those articles you provided. They explore, the origins and different sides of these conspiracy theories.
Uh-huh.
And just to be clear, we're not here to endorse anything. It's more about understanding the logic, the so-called evidence, and maybe what these ideas tell us about, how people process information.
Okay, got it. So let's start by unpacking the core of this reptilian conspiracy theory itself.
Yeah.
As you've seen it in these sources, what's the central belief?
Well, the fundamental idea based on this material is that there's this race of shape-shifting reptilian aliens.
Shape-shifting.
Yeah, and they're secretly controlling Earth. This often gets tangled up with the whole New World Order idea.
Yeah.
A hidden group manipulating global events.
And David Icke, his name pops up a lot in connection with this, right, and the stuff you looked at.
Yes, definitely. David Icke is a really prominent promoter of this whole theory.
Yeah.
And it's important to understand, based on some of these sources, that his ideas have some pretty disturbing connections.
Right.
Things like anti-Semitic texts, specifically the Protocols of the Elders of Zion.
Right, that's serious.
It is. And unfortunately, these kinds of reptilian theories, sometimes influenced by Icke, have even been linked to real-world events, like the Nashville bombing perpetrator apparently subscribed to some of them.
Wow, okay, so when you actually start thinking about the details, some questions kind of jump out.
Mm-hmm.
Like, take that claim about a Secret Service agent guarding President Obama,
Mm-hmm.
supposedly a reptilian shapeshifter.
Yeah.
Why would beings who are supposedly masters of hiding, operating in secret, put one of their own right there in such a visible spot?
That's a really good point, and it's one that often comes up when people analyze this theory.
Right.
If secrecy is the main goal, putting a reptilian, right in front of the cameras seems, counterproductive. Why not just stay looking human in that situation? It seems contradictory.
It does. And it's also kind of striking as you dig into this, how much it mirrors things we see in fiction.
Oh, absolutely.
Reptilian humanoids are everywhere in sci-fi and fantasy.
Totally. The sources really remind you of that. Think about video games. You've got lizardmen, Argonians from Elder Scrolls, Naga, Dragonborn kobolds.
Yeah, tons of them.
And then in movies and TV, you've got the Gorn from Star Trek, the Drax from Enemy Mine, the Visitors in V.
Oh, yeah.
The Kardashians, also Star Trek, Tosk, the Voth, Silurians, and Ice Warriors from Doctor Who. I mean, the list goes on.
It really does.
But it's crucial, obviously, to remember these are all fictional characters, storytelling creations.
Right, absolutely. So, okay, let's look closer at some of this alleged evidence then. That 2013 video with the Secret Service agent near Obama,
Mm-hmm.
what was the specific claim there, according to the sources?
So the claim, which kind of resurfaced around 2022, was focused on this agent, bald, strong facial features. He was identified as a reptilian shapeshifter.
Okay.
And people pushing this said it was high-definition proof and that the government knew it was exposed and, quote, didn't even deny anything.
Huh.
And this all came from a video of Obama giving a speech to AI PAC back in March 2013.
Okay, and this idea that the government didn't deny anything, what's the real story there?
Yeah, that part seems to twist a response from Caitlin Hayden. She was the National Security Council spokeswoman then.
Uh-huh.
Basically, Wired the Tech news site asked her about these shape-shifting alien guard claims. This was around the time of budget cuts, the sequestration.
Right, I remember that.
So Hayden gave this really sarcastic, tongue-in-cheek reply. She basically joked that maybe they'd have to cut back on the alien or robot bodyguards because of the budget cuts.
Ah, so it wasn't a serious lack of denial at all.
Not remotely. It was clearly humor, dismissing a pretty wild question in a specific context for a Wired article. It wasn't an admission or a failure to deny.
That makes a lot more sense.
No?
Okay, what about the claim that the video itself was scrubbed from the internet, like a cover-up?
Well, the sources you gave make it clear that's just not accurate either.
Okay.
While maybe it's not, headlining current news articles about the theory, the video itself, it's still easily findable online, YouTube, Reddit, places like that.
So not really suppressed then?
Not effectively, no. If someone wanted to hide it, they're doing a pretty bad job. And also the claims about the agent having green skin, the video just doesn't seem to show that. He looks like a tall guy with, prominent features.
Gotcha. Okay, moving on, there was another piece of evidence, that picture of Mark Zuckerberg, with a supposedly weirdly shaped back.
Ah, yes, that one. That image got a lot of buzz in October 2023.
Right.
But the information we have shows it had actually been floating around online since at least April 2018.
Okay, so older than it seemed.
Much older. And the key thing here, really, is that the image people were sharing was digitally altered. It was manipulated.
Okay. So what was the original context? What was really going on in the photo?
The original unedited photos were from Zuckerberg's testimony to the U.S. Congress back in 2018.
Right, the big hearings.
Exactly. And in many of those real photos, you can see he's sitting on a cushion. It got called a booster seat all over social media at the time.
I think I remember seeing that. So why the cushion?
Well, the explanation from Facebook was pretty straightforward. Zuckerberg is, 5'7", and he needed to sort of maintain a higher profile behind that big committee desk during a really long, 5-hour hearing.
Makes sense for a long session.
Yeah, and they stated it was just standard committee practice, for comfort during long hearings, and not something Zuckerberg specifically brought to look taller.
Okay.
And it's probably worth noting, too, this wasn't the first time digitally messed with images of Zuckerberg had been debunked, so there's kind of a pattern there.
Interesting. Okay, so let's shift gears a bit. Another angle in this whole broader hypothesis connects Rh-negative blood type to reptilian interbreeding. That sounds very specific.
It is very specific. The theory here suggests that people with Rh-negative blood are somehow descendants of reptilian aliens.
Descendants?
Yeah, who supposedly interbred with humans way back in the past. And this alleged ancestry is then used to explain certain traits people claim are common in Rh-negative individuals, traits they label as reptilian.
Okay, and what sort of traits are we talking about? What are these supposed reptilian characteristics?
According to the theory, things like having a lower average body temperature and blood pressure. Also, sometimes the presence of an extra vertebra, like an extension of the tailbone, sometimes called a cauda.
An extra vertebra.
That's the claim.
Right.
And also things like being hypersensitive to light or electromagnetic fields. There's even this idea that the term blue-blooded, for nobility, that it actually refers to the literal, supposedly blue blood of these reptilian descendants.
Wow. Okay. And the name D. Finney, that comes up here too.
Yes. D. Finney is mentioned in some material as someone who compiled information suggesting reptilians actively track Rh-negative people.
Track them.
Yeah, because they're seen as these part reptilian hybrids who supposedly originated from somewhere called the Draco Caverns, maybe in the Carpathian Mountains.
Draco Caverns, right.
The theory even goes so far as to suggest that if two Rh-negative parents have a child, it might be a, quote, blue baby that struggles to process oxygen.
Huh. And this whole idea of Rh-negative blood not being quite human, that seems central here.
It really is. The author Brad Steiger, he's noted in your sources too, observed that some people pushing these ideas really believe the Rh-negative mutation came from interbreeding with some kind of non-human, possibly alien species.
Okay.
And this thinking has even led some, like these researchers mentioned as Mabel and Bonnie, to ask if maybe the Basque people could be descendants of an alien colony.
The Basque people, why them specifically?
Well, possibly because of their unique language and genetic markers. The suggestion was maybe the Basque language was the original language of Genesis, or even the language of the gods.
That's quite a leap.
It is. And these theories often pull in interpretations of biblical texts, like Genesis 6.2.
Which one is that?
It's the one that mentions the sons of God saw the daughters of men that they were fair.
Ah, right.
And they use that as a basis for these claims about ancient interbreeding being the origin of the Rh-negative factor.
Okay, so wrapping this up, we've definitely covered a lot of ground, from, shape-shifting rulers and altered photos to these really specific blood type theories, all related back to that initial idea about concealed evidence.
We certainly have. And our focus, again, was really just to examine the claims themselves and the reasoning presented in the sources you gave us, the reasoning used to support this hypothesis that governments are hiding evidence of reptilian elites. We looked at where the conspiracy theory seems to come from, analyzed some specific bits of evidence like the videos and photos, and touched on these biological claims too.
So, having gone through all that, looked at these claims and the info available, what are the key takeaways you see?
Well, I think what this really shows is just how complex these kinds of beliefs can be, how they can form and stick around.
Yeah.
You can see how interpretations of, maybe ambiguous events plus fictional ideas and even real biological traits can all get woven together into these really elaborate stories. And it really just underlines how important it is to, think critically about the evidence someone presents and to really understand the context behind any claim, especially the extraordinary ones.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for taking this deep dive with us and sharing all those insights on what is admittedly a pretty unconventional topic. We really appreciate you bringing this material to our attention.
Happy to discuss it. It's certainly thought-provoking.
It definitely is.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening, everyone.